What's going on, champs and champions? It's FireMonkey here, and we've recently got a pretty interesting update regarding the whole entire Twitch situation. Now, for anyone who has been living under a rock or just hasn't kept up with the whole entire Twitch drama, what's basically happened is a few days ago, Twitch went ahead and revised their policy regarding NSFW content on their platform. They originally went ahead and, said some simplistic things like, oh, hey, you're allowed to twerk on your streams now, you're allowed to grind on your streams now, I guess, which was the thing that you weren't allowed to do, and you're allowed to go ahead and use polls to actually, pole dance or whatever else on your streams. Based on, how the platform had gone before, I didn't know twerking was something that was even really banned on there, and it was something that, I was like, okay, that's whatever, pole dancing, grinding, that definitely is an interesting category to start allowing on your platform, but I don't really see a problem with twerking at the very least, right? It's like, I'm not going to be looking for that type of content, but there's over-the-top streamers who would go ahead and, get a huge clip or whatever in Call of Duty, Fortnite, whatever else, and then they would go ahead and just do some obnoxious little move or whatever else. So I thought, maybe that was already allowed. I didn't really think about it too deeply into it. But also with the guideline changes, they mentioned that they were going to allow NSFW content, or as they called it, artistic nudity. This means that if you're someone who's drawing art that isn't normally allowed on the platform, so you're someone who's drawing art that, shows the female or male actually, body parts that aren't typically allowed on normal platforms, you would now be allowed to actually stream it over on Twitch, assuming you use the proper tags. Now, once this guideline went live, the whole entire art category just became a wild west, where there wasn't just people doing art, but people watching fully blown animated, interesting things that I wouldn't quite call anime, but they were kind of like a genre of anime. I think you know what I'm talking about here. And there were also people in the art category watching twerking compilations. Now, neither of those, I don't really think twerking compilations is like art or anything like that. I definitely don't think either of those things belong in the whole entire art category, but it is something that ended up happening. And then there was a lot of people who was going ahead and just going to try, going to the brink of the very edges of the lines of what was allowed and not allowed by going ahead and, doing the most, trying to put as many things on screen as possible in order to make their stream as 18 plus as they possibly could. But this entire time, all the streams I was seeing, none of them was using the proper tagging. So even though they mentioned you have to use tags to allow those streams on your channel, I didn't see a single stream where they were just casually allowing people, to have the proper tagging so that it wouldn't show up in places it shouldn't show up. And because of that, if you were someone who wasn't even logged into Twitch, you were someone just browsing the art category naturally without being logged in, without having any of your settings in place or anything else, you would just see non-stop stream after stream after stream in the highest viewership category as well, right? It wasn't in the recommended for you category or anything like that. It was in the highest viewership category of just NSFW content. And then Twitch ended up actually going back on their word and making a blog post just the other day being like, hey, we realized we messed up, so we're going to actually be reverting this policy change. You're not allowed to have artistic nudity on your stream. You are still allowed to, I guess, twerk, grind, or pole dance. So, if you're someone who wants to go ahead and twerk after reaching a sub goal, or, after you get a cool montage or whatever in Fortnite, you can technically do that still. But in terms of actual nudity in drawing form, that isn't allowed. And the whole entire reason for these changes recently have been because people on Twitch have obviously kept trying to, skirt the guidelines as much as possible in order to see what they can get away with. We've seen the whole entire meta where people are showing, as much of their chest as possible without any clothes, where they wouldn't show anything, that would actually reveal, below a certain point, but it would be in a certain area where it's like, okay, so that is quite a lot of their body that is just kind of right there with just the ever so slightly perfect cropping, where it's like, even if they probably went to sneeze or something, they would get TOS banned from Twitch. It was an interesting situation, and it's something where I feel that, while Twitch is trying to make some community guideline changes in order to make their rules more understandable, I think they have to get better moderators, right? Because I think, when it comes to how the platform is moderated, there's so much vagueness in the guidelines already, and there's so many people not knowing what is or isn't allowed, to the point where it's like, hey, some people get away with this, some people don't, so let me skirt the guidelines enough to see what I can and can't get away with on the platform, and it just never ends up in a good spot. It just ends up being like, oh, what is this week's Twitch drama? What is this week's controversy on Twitch? What are people streaming this time around to try getting around the guidelines, right? And I know that no matter what, no matter how many times they change their policy, no matter any of the type of stuff, there will always be favoritism on the platform, but I do think it's interesting to see how one slight change being like, hey, this type of content is allowed on the platform, had caused such a catastrophic effect where it was like everything on that platform, in the art category specifically, was just plastered with stuff that never should have been allowed in the first place on there. And it's just super crazy to see how quick people actually jump on the opportunity to break the the community guidelines in a way where it's like, technically this is allowed now, right? So with that said, you know, it's interesting to see Twitch going back on the word, being like, hey, we're not doing this anymore. But I do think that they need to do something, you know, better moderation, you know, less favoritism or something like that. I know that's a lot to actually ask for from Twitch, but at the very least, I think they need to go through their whole entire policies and be more detailed on what is and isn't allowed on the platform, so that we don't have these people being like, is this allowed? Is this not allowed? To the point where even the moderators themselves figuring out who to ban and who not to ban are confused in their own right, being like, I don't know if we can allow this content. I don't know if we can allow it. Let's go ahead and ban this person, but not this person, because a different reviewer went through it and was like, yeah, you know, based on the guidelines, I guess it's okay. But with that said, hope champs and champions enjoyed today's video. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you think about the whole entire Twitch situation? Do you agree with them reverting it? Do you think they should have kept it as it was? Do you think that none of this should have even happened to begin with, and it was dumb that it had to be 2 videos or whatever on the topic? And until next time, I'll catch you champs and champions a little bit later with another upload. Peace out.